Thank you for tuning in to the TOMOSI Business Training Series. For the past couple of weeks, we have been covering the level of financial investments in a firm. In our segment last week, we covered some of the areas where an entrepreneur can acquire money to invest in their business, such as savings and foreign direct investment. And this week, we look at two more areas, which are pulling funds into SACCOs and developing of business clusters. Enjoy!
Number 3, source of money. It's called pulling funds into SACCOs. We know SACCOs, I don't have to explain them in Uganda. Pulling funds, small funds into our SACCOs at parish level, village level, business level, company level. This is one of the quickest and easiest ways to raise investment capital. But I should tell you something. This requires very high levels of trust. It requires very good management. It requires a high sense of discipline of members and leaders of the SACCOs. I want you to not underestimate the power of SACCOs in building resources for investment in businesses. That is the reason Government of Uganda is planning on investing 100 million shillings in each of the 10,000 parishes in the country for the next 5 financial years. Very important. It means that government is taking these small amounts. In my parish, I think we're about 3,000 people, but I know parishes in Mukono, in Buvuma, where you find 6,000 people. It's a small amount of money, but SACCOs are a way to foster savings, because if you have little savings at 16%, this is another way to force you to save. It's also a source of good capital for the country, so that you don't have to borrow from outside. That's number 3. Number 4, the fourth source of investment capital to make our businesses competitive. I call it developing business clusters or groups. These clusters tend to have focus on those that have low financial investment requirements. If you focus on clusters, you can look at those that have low need for financial investment, but they have a high potential for good returns through what we call aggregation. The other term for aggregation of clusters is agglomeration. If you've heard about a company called Airbus in France, it is manufactured in 3 different countries, but the firms that supply, the companies which supply Airbus parts are about 7,000 to 8,000 spread across southern France. To agglomerate those companies so that they can now get better supply and better margins with less costs. So, if clusters are based on a product such as tourism or dairy or grains, when those clusters are aggregated, they benefit from good economies of scale. Instead of my 10 kilos in Katakwi, my 100 kilos in Kabale, my 30 tons in Buganda, in Luwero, aggregation becomes problematic. Now, if economies of scale become problematic, if you aggregate and create clusters, then you have good joint systems and standards. It is very easy to rub a standard across aggregated companies. It is expensive. If each one of us have to have an uptake for building industry standard, how many of us can do that? It's very expensive. To achieve this clustering requires cooperation. And that's the thing we don't want to speak about in our country. It requires people coming together, putting down their egos, putting down what they think I will benefit if I go alone. Cooperation between firms. When firms cooperate, it means the back end, which we call inputs, raw materials, the front end, which is sales and marketing. If they work with public sector officials, you will see companies make more money, their bottom lines get better, they employ more, and it is very easy for government to support them. As you can call clusters cooperatives. People like to hang on the word cooperatives, but a cluster, an agglomerated group of companies is still a cooperative by other names. Now, clusters can take advantage of geography. For example, if you have companies that are close to the market of Eastern DRC, if they have cooking oil, if they are in beef, if they're in grains, closeness, which is geography, gives you advantage. Clusters also can come together under infrastructure advantages. So, say for example, joint warehousing and logistics, cold rooms, transportation to exit points. Even clusters can bring down the cost of exit when you are exporting. Exit inspection comes down when there are clusters. There are a number of sectors that can be pulled into clusters if we have good leadership and good cooperation. It is pretty easy if there is leadership, I repeat, and cooperation. In this way, they can attract finances for investment at very low rates. Agglomeration also, the sectors that you can start with include food processing, if you're in that sector. Nothing stops all the grains people working together. Pharmaceuticals, because they share research and development. Tourism, because you have vehicles like we have here. If we have 100 of them working together, we get better incentives and lower cost of operation. Financial services, banks and all those, IT, health, and education. I think I want to end with just one example. Remember private schools. When COVID-19 pandemic struck, everyone ran on their own. Everyone had a loan. There was no way to bring people together and say, this is the way to do this. All of us come together because we're a cluster, and we can negotiate better incentives. We can deal with banks jointly. We can go to government and ask for reinvestment, for government to take off those loans if we are performing. If there had been early clustering based on the needs of that sector and the services they offer, perhaps this would have given a cushion to the education sector, and it would have aided quick recovery, and investment would have been better post-pandemic. I thank you for listening to me. Have a great weekend.
Would like to hear from you. Please email us at info@tapmedia.com and visit our website at www.tapmedia.com. You can also visit our offices located at TOMOSI Business Park, Luzira, Port Bell Road, or call 0414 220 702. Thank you.